Today we're visiting with Philip Rains from Rains Honey Farm, and we're going to explore what it really looks like inside of a beehive and all the different magical things that happen inside of there to create that wonderful honey that we all enjoy. So, Philip, thanks for having us out today.
Glad to have you. Thanks for coming.
We're in a beautiful location. There's lots and lots of flowers around us. Tell us a little bit about where we're at.
So we're at one of our landlords. So we have about 12 locations that we put bees on, and any location can have anywhere from 12 to 40 hives on it. We're here at Harlan Tipton's farm, and part of his land is in CRP, where they plant a lot of pollinator products out there. So we have bee balm, we have a lot of clovers, we have a lot of legumes, a lot of wildflowers that benefit not only honeybees, but butterflies and hummingbirds and even goldfinches because of the seed set. So it provides a way to help sustain the ground, helps waterways as well, helps erosion on land that you wouldn't normally farm. So it's a beautiful location for bees. There's also no agricultural sprays that are done up here, which can challenge the bees per se.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you said you've got up to 40 hives in some places. How many hives do you manage in total?
So right now we're running 600 hives. Okay, across southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois, and every location's a little bit different. Some locations there's a lot of alfalfa, and some locations there's a lot of basswood, which is a tree, and they all bloom at different times. So some, like our forest preserves that we have hives on, some of those are a darker honey, and some of our alfalfa beef farmers and dairy farmers that we cooperate with, that we put hives on their property, it's really a light, very clear honey.
So that's why when we go to the store, honey might be different shades of that golden color.
Correct, depending on what floral source the bees work. So if you go to California and you get honey from like an avocado orchard, it's really dark and rich, okay, kind of like a molasses. If you go down to the southern states, you have mesquite, you have privet, which is a darker honey, or even eucalyptus, which is really dark and robust. But up here in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, most of our honeys are very light until the fall, and that's when you have goldenrod, you'll have smartweed, you'll have asters that start blooming, and that has a real strong, almost kind of like what's the cheese that is really strong?
Limburger?
Limburger. It's kind of like a Limburger cheese compared to a mozzarella is how you would compare our light clover honeys to our fall honeys. It's real strong and robust. Luckily, some people love it, but most of the time we leave that honey back for the bees so that they have groceries to overwinter with.
Awesome, awesome. So how long have you been doing this, Philip?
So I've been a beekeeper full-time for 15 years and part-time as a hobby beekeeper for a total of 22 years.
Wow, what got you guys so interested in the bees?
So I have tremendous seasonal allergies, and I was helping an older farmer bale hay, and my nose was running and my eyes were watering, and he came up to me after the end of the day and said, if I eat a teaspoonful of honey in the morning and a teaspoonful of honey, local honey, in the evening, it would fix my allergies. So I took his advice and I tried it, and in about 7 days, I didn't have to take any of my allergy medicines anymore.
Wow.
So I decided after about 2 years of buying someone else's honey, I was going to get some hives of my own. And about 12 years after my first hive, we finally got large enough with splitting and growing and picking up different retail accounts to sell our honey that I left the corporate world and became a full-time bee farmer.
Well, that's quite a story. I understand that if we eat local honey, all of the things that we might be allergic to under normal circumstances, once that gets into our system, then that helps our bodies process those things better.
Correct. So it's kind of taking a little bit of honey with the pollen that's naturally occurring in honey, and you're desensitizing your system. Very simple, very similar to taking an allergy shot or even taking a flu shot. So you give yourself a little bit of that bug that's been sterilized, and your body builds up an immunity to the flu. It's an identical thing, except you're using your digestive tract to process that pollen, so you desensitize yourself to the pollens that are in the air.
Very interesting.
It doesn't do much for horse dander or cat dander or dog hair, but for the other pollens that are out there, it does wonders.
Airborne types of things.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
So you have honey over here on the outside of what's called the brood nest. This is where the queen will lay some eggs. And then you have larvae in the white. Do you see the larva?
Yep.
So you have larvae, and then after 9 days of being larvae and being fed by the nurse bees, they put this little wax capping on it. And just like a butterfly, a caterpillar will pupate into a butterfly. The baby bee, the larva, will pupate from a larva at day 9, and at day 21 it'll hatch out as a little baby bee and then help keep the hive going.
So all of this here
Are baby bees.
are baby bees.
Yeah.
And you said that caps at day 9?
At day 9 they'll cap it, so it's 3 days as an egg, 6 days as a larva, and they'll feed that larva 250 times in those 6 days that it says a larva.
Wow.
And a queen will be fed, when they raise a queen, a new queen to replace the old queen, they'll feed it 2,500 times with nothing but royal jelly. And that's how you turn a larva from a baby bee. Instead of a baby bee, the last 3 days of feed will all be royal jelly instead of honey. So it's all diet to determine if it's going to be a queen or a worker.
And how long do the queens generally live?
Queens will live typically 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
But depending, like anything is, as they get older, they start to dwindle in productivity. So we try to replace our queens right at that 1.5 year mark. You go too much further than that and you don't know what's going to happen with the hive.
So you can see that we've got quite a bit of gear on today. So let's talk a little bit about why it's white and why we're covered from head to foot. Why are we wearing white? Isn't that messy?
Just for the fun of it. So what happens is most of the predators of bees are animals that you would find in nature with darker hides. So when you look at a grizzly bear or a black bear or a brown bear that would typically tip over a hive to eat the brood and the honey for food, bees don't typically like darker colored animals because those are the ones that are bothering the hive. Now the nice thing about white is typically very calming to bees, and the veil, they can't see our faces because they have what's called a compound eye. They can see the veil over your face, but they can't see your face behind it. So they don't know what you are. All they see is a big white marshmallow. Okay, and who doesn't love marshmallows?
Especially bees.
Yeah, exactly, especially bees. So they typically won't bother us as long as we use a little bit of smoke. And smoke helps complement your bee suit, because what smoke does is it allows the bee to think that there's a fire in the woods. Now, most bees are native to trees, and if there's a forest fire and that forest fire gets to their tree, they're all going to have to leave. So when you smoke a hive, they all start filling their tummies up with honey, just the same as if a fire hit our house, the first thing we usually grab is the checkbook.
Right.
Okay, grab our wallet, and then we leave.
Right.
It's the same with the honeybees. Their money is technically honey, so they load up their tummies, and that way if the fire gets to their house from the smell of the smoke, they can leave and they can start a nest somewhere else.
Ah,
So the smoke helps keep them calm, okay? It doesn't do them any damage. It doesn't hurt them. It just lets them think there might be a fire somewhere to prepare for it. So they're focusing on eating honey instead of us managing the hives.
Oh, very interesting. Have you ever been stung as a beekeeper?
I get stung every week because, when you're working as many hives as we are working and you get into a bee yard, so like we found in our exploring today, we found one hive that doesn't have a queen. So we moved some of those eggs and larvae and brood to the hive that doesn't have a queen so that they can raise a brand new one. What ends up happening though is if you have that hive open too long and you forget to smoke it a little bit, Sometimes they'll get a little bit upset and they'll find a spot to sting you.
Ah, I see.
Okay, and you figure I got this little tiny hole that I got to fix in my veil. If one gets in there, I'm probably going to get stung. So I need to be a good boy and put some tape over it.
Right. But in general, if we're at school or if we're at home, we shouldn't be afraid of bees, right?
Absolutely not. Most bees are only going to defend their home. If you're out on a playground and you see a bee on a clover, they're just looking to get some groceries and take that back home. They're not going to sting you.
Yeah, absolutely. And they help our environment so much and our food sources so much that we should really leave them alone.
Absolutely, because 2/3 of all the food we eat, we would not have if it wasn't for honeybees.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all your information today, Philip. And we'll certainly enjoy some delicious honey in this winter.
Thank you for coming out, Diane. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.